Welcome to Property Question Time. This is the programme where you can have your property related questions answered by our team of experts. I'm Stephen Galpin, and with me today are Stefano Lucatello.
Hello Stephen.
How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Jolly good. You're senior partner at Cobalt Law, author and of course Property TV's Celebrity Chef.
Oh yes.
Busy chap. Okay, secondly we have Tricia Harvey. Welcome back.
Good to be back.
This is your second programme, so you're a property investor and CEO of Harvey Property Solutions Group.
That's right.
Jolly good, nice to see you. And John Howard, our property developer, author and of course property angel on Property Elevator. Stefano, your first question then. Having a large villa in Spain, which I rarely use, seems to be a waste of money. I thought about renting it out as a villa, but then had a brainwave about converting it into 2 apartments. Can I do that?
It very much depends on which part of Spain you're in. It very much depends on what the equivalent of the local authority, what's called the ayuntamiento, thinks about it. And it also very much depends on whether you're in a green belt or situated near the coast. So it has a load of variables which you have to click through before you can get to actually considering whether you can develop it into 2 or more flats. The first thing you need to do is go and see the local ayuntamiento, the local authority, and ask them the question. And it's very much the case of going in, asking the question and seeing what their reaction is. It's certainly easier if someone along the road or someone nearby to you or your next door neighbour has done that, because there'll be a precedent which has been set. And therefore you can say, look, on the basis of what he's done, I'd like to do the same. It's very good. It would bring with it a whole load of other imponderables and thoughts, tax consequences, because you'll divide your house up into 2, which means you rent it out, which means that you'll have therefore an income tax liability for the rent that you've derived in Spain, but you won't pay it in Spain because you're a resident in England. And therefore you pay tax in the United Kingdom, but you'll have to declare it in Spain. So it brings with it a whole load of different imponderables that I can't answer any more than a general answer at the moment.
Okay, well I remember I think 20 odd years ago developing in Spain, and you know, just asking the local authority was not an easy ask in those days.
Well, it very much depends.
If at all.
Well, I mean, I have to say that in the old days it was very much dependent on the brown envelope passing under the table, which is very much not the case.
I resisted saying
that.
resisted
saying, but you let me as a lawyer say that, yes. It's very much not the case now in Spain that a brown envelope passes anywhere, because both Italy and France Italy and Spain, sorry, where it used to be very rife, the authorities have clamped down substantially, and under the table envelopes are very rare nowadays, and most people who do that get caught.
Would you recommend seeing any kind of professional
absolutely
there
yes, absolutely.
Undertake that for
yes,
you?
Absolutely. You go to the equivalent of a planning what we call them in England, a planning expert,
Consultant.
Consultant. Yes, you would absolutely. It's always the case that whenever you're in your own country or foreign country, you want to do something that's out of your remit, you need to be surrounded by the right professionals who can assist you. They will cost you. You need to do a budget. You need to see whether what you want to do is worth it. As John says, you know, you can overdevelop and put a load of money into it, and you see what your return is. I mean, if you want to. And the other thing is also depends on how you want to rent it out. Let's say you've got the permission, you build it, you come to the day, you start renting it. How are you going to rent it out? In Spain now, for the last 3 years, the laws have changed on renting. Basically what's happened is that the laws have become the same as we have in England, so fire certificates and all the other certification that you need for HMOs and whatever else, which I'm not an expert on, you need. And as such, you need to comply with those. They're very hot on them. If you don't, they will shut you down, they will fine you. And the other thing is also Airbnb. Airbnb has now been restricted in Spain to 90 calendar days for each property, and if you do, and there are very strict guidelines on that, because you almost have people around you watching you, and they will go back to the authorities and say, this person, I've seen this person renting out for more than 90 days, and you will then be quizzed, and on the basis of the evidence that you give back, you will then be fined.
Sure. Tricia, anything to add?
I think that's just a really good point. You're the expert in this area, but I think definitely not cutting corners, because if it's something you're serious about and you want to look into the potential of developing or changing the use of something, then investing in and building a relationship with a really astute planning agent and architect in that area is just, you know, invaluable, because most of the time they have the relationship with the local authority already. And they'll know by just being able to look at their magical portals what things have been able to get through. So they'll know what things very quickly to say there's an over concentration in this area, so it's very unlikely to get through, so it's not worth the time of the application. Or yes, they're looking really favourably on encouraging more accommodation in this area right now, so this would be favourable. So just things like that, having a really good team in your arsenal is really important when it comes to that.
I always say, always surround yourself with the best people. And it doesn't seem that much different to developing in England. Obviously different laws and so on, but actually assume it's as difficult by the sound of things.
That's the right thing, is assume nothing.
Assume nothing. Assume it's as difficult, and you won't go too far wrong.
Stefano mentioned Airbnb. Are we finding that's still on the rise here?
Well, it appears to be still. I mean, even the gentleman on my right has used it recently. So, you know, what can I say?
I mean, it's becoming a real problem though, because
well, it's a breach of leasing.
Well, it's a breach of leasing. I know
planning
that,
as well.
In the building where I live in London, lots of people do Airbnb, and it's quite clearly a breach of the lease, because you're not supposed to create a sublease or a division which is less than anything that can be in an assured short-term tenancy.
I don't know how you enforce it to some degree, because you know
it's the freeholder that has to
but
enforce
once you see it happening, it's too late, isn't it?
Well, it's interesting. On some developments we've done recently, we've been asked the question and given permission to get the sale through. So we've actually given them the permission to do so within the lease, because otherwise they'd pull out. So, you know, it's interesting.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much. Tricia, your question. I'm intending to buy an existing rundown HMO and renovate it. The work will take 2 months and the rental achievable will increase by about 10 or 15%. The property has 5 tenants. How can I best handle them and try to keep them as tenants? It makes taking over an existing HMO less attractive if I can't retain the tenants after improving their living accommodation.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. In my experience of doing this, it's all about creating the relationship from the very beginning, from the moment that you've put an interest into purchasing the property. So the moment that you've had an agreement from the existing landlord that they're happy to sell it to you, you want to meet with the existing tenants, or if you don't manage them yourself, get your managing agent round there to create the relationship from day one. Explain your plans for the property and how you want to improve their living conditions, and maybe show them pictures for reference as to what the kind of decorative style is going to be at the end. I have testimonials, things like that I also show tenants, so that you can give them an idea about the standard of living that you provide based on a tenant's view, not just mine. So things like that, just to give them that security. A lot of the thing with existing tenants is, you know, how safe am I? Am I going to be thrown out as soon as you take over? So getting things set up like their ASTs, getting them put into your name, giving them their 6 months or however long you agree with them. The most important thing for me about buying an existing HMO is, interestingly, you know, the profit is going to raise by 10 to 15%. In my opinion, that's, you know, it's quite a small amount. I would be looking for quite a big increase if it was an existing one, or of that it was in a really awful condition. And then I was going to dramatically increase the profitability. So by forcing the appreciation, getting lots of different rooms in there, so extra accommodation, as well as obviously the standard that I'm providing in there. And in that case, in my experience, what we generally do is the rental amount that's being currently charged is very out of their budget. In what we charge our other tenants. So I give them at least 3 to 4 months notice as to what the rent is likely to be when the end product is there. Again, giving the tenants the option to stay in that accommodation when it's finished and just upgrade their rental amounts, or they have time to find another accommodation that is more befitting to them. But this all has to go in line with their ASTs, of course.
Well, I was just going to say, when you give them that option to stay, presumably that can only be a new AST.
On a new AST, absolutely, absolutely.
And Stefano, how would you, is there any way you could contract to try and make it almost a condition of the purchase that the tenants stay? I don't suppose there is really, is there?
You can transfer the AST. There's nothing to stop you.
No, you can transfer them, but you can't really lock them into anything new, can you?
No, absolutely not. No, you would have to transfer the AST, let it come to an end, or force it to an end in whichever way by. You could almost, what you could do is you could serve them, was it a Section 21 notice?
21
notice, terminated,
well,
and simultaneously,
for the
simultaneously then grant a new.
It will always
a new
amend.
Yeah.
It will always amend. But yeah, absolutely, you can obviously have that option from the beginning. I mean, this question is different because they're actually, in most of the time, I'll try and get vacant possession because we generally go in there and we're rebuilding it inside, so it's not fit for a tenant to live there. But obviously this must be in condition to a certain degree where they can do works whilst tenants are in the building. But you can obviously offer vacant possession as a condition of the sale. So if you would only look to purchase the property once it's been evidenced that it's vacant, of which it can be fun sometimes to do that. But definitely looking to force the accretion, try and add some more rooms, definitely for the reprofitability. What's the outcome for this particular landlord? Is he looking to leverage to get all of his money back out so that he can continue to grow organically, or is he just looking to leave his money in the property and just make a nice rental income? So it'd be interesting to know that if he wants to write it in again.
So again, the importance of business planning, John.
Absolutely. Well, I think we've got an expert next to me here, so I'm not going to comment any further on HMOs because, as I said, in my day they were bedsits. So
Okay.
you know,
Well, we've had that one before.
we have had that one before.
Okay,
yeah.
John.
And in your day as well, by the way.
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah.
So, John, your question. I want to future-proof my portfolio of 5 rental properties against the fact that there's a lot of building work going on in the area, including the creation of starter homes and assisted purchase houses. Can anyone advise me on how to do that?
I don't really understand the question, to be honest with you, Steve.
Well, I'm not sure. I think what they're saying is, look, they're in obviously an area of high development.
Yes.
How do they protect the rental income that they've got off these 5 properties when there's going to be probably an oversupply in the area?
Very simple.
I'm guessing that's...
Sell them and move somewhere else. Sell them all up.
Yeah.
Move.
I think I'd go with you on that.
Honestly,
yeah.
because I mean, and you can faff about with an answer here, there, and everywhere, but ultimately, if they're not happy and they think the market or the properties around them is changing and the area is changing, not to their liking, then clearly they need to do something.
Tricia, quite quickly, what would you say?
Yeah, I think just in my opinion, if the area is being developed, it definitely suggests a lack of property in the area, lack of accommodation. We've definitely established that, especially right now, the housing crisis is worse than it has ever been.
Only, can I stop you there? Only in the south. There's
south.
no problem in the north. There's a massive short housing in the south. In the north, there's plenty of housing.
I think it's open to suggestion. I don't believe saturation exists, and I think definitely like HMO renting, buy-to-let, service accommodation, there's very, very high demand for a good product. So just check your demand, and if the demand is still there for the area, then there's no suggestion to.
I think I tend to go with John a little bit. I think there's very little saturation, even down here to a degree. I think what you do find is that if developers know they can sell their product, a developer will supply all the product you need. But on that note, that's all we have time for in this half of the show. We're going to go to our break now. Join us shortly.
Having financial freedom isn't a dream. Tricia and Mark Harvey have proved that in their own lives. They started with nothing, and over 2 years they've built a property portfolio worth £6.5 million. They believe that everyone has the potential to become financially free and have set about the creation of life transformational training to assess people in achieving it. To find out how you can become financially free in under 12 months, go to www.reallife-group.com or call 077 300 03182.
Hi, I'm John Howard, and I'm known as the property expert. The reason for this is over the last 40 odd years, I've bought and sold over 3,500 properties, and I'm still going. I'm delighted to pass on my vast experience and knowledge to you through my property seminars that are taking place across the UK this year. To know more, please go to johnhowardpropertyexpert.co.uk.
Buying your dream home abroad is no more difficult than buying a home in the UK. Cobalt Law LLP is the name to trust for providing international qualified property solicitors and a comprehensive range of legal services with decades of experience in overseas property law. We have both English and international qualified lawyers with expertise to handle both routine property purchases and complex business transactions. For more information, visit our website at cobaltlaw.co.uk. Let us help you to take the stress out of buying property overseas.
Welcome back to part 2 of Property Question Time. I'm Stephen Galpin, and with me are Stefano Lucatello.
Hello, Stephen.
Tricia Harvey.
Hello.
And John Howard.
Hi.
Welcome back. So, Stefano, your question.
Yes.
I'm getting hassle from a French farmer about
Shoot him.
parking my car in our common roadway / drive. He's got farm machinery, which, although he can get past my car, makes it difficult for him. Should I or could I involve anyone in making him realise it's not all his own and I have the right to park there too?
The French are a law unto themselves, Stephen, whether they are fishermen, lorry drivers, milkmen, agricultural people, or any other form of profession or otherwise.
I'm guessing you're voting Brexit then, are you?
I'm voting to remain, have to say. I'm voted to remain,
know
and we
that,
should
we
remain.
know that.
John and I have talked about this before.
have.
Anyway, we're not talking about Brexit today. Your easiest port of call would be to call the gendarmerie and get a policeman, but he's more than likely to side with the farmer because he's a local and you're not. What I would do is I would go around with a bottle of wine and I would just sort of try and explain to him the problems that he's causing with his farm machinery and this, that and the other. It is the case that many people who buy on agricultural land and who know that there is a shared driveway, a shared courtyard, a shared access to and from the property, this is totally ignored by the person who is the local. And he or she thinks that the driveway is theirs to do as they want with in this particular case. So it's very difficult because once you start police, once you start legal proceedings, once you start getting nasty with them, you will then have to suffer the consequences of your car probably being burned or something like that, as I've had a client recently who's had that done to him. And, you know, it's a very difficult line to draw. You could do the ultimate, which is not say anything, put the property up for sale and move. And that's what my client did.
Well, all this sounds very drastic, John. Is there not a softer way rather than... Stefano, sorry. Rather than calling
I've got the answer.
Have you?
Move the car. Move the car. I mean,
Or
why
buy,
have all
or,
the
or
hassle?
buy a bicycle, I
Why have all
suppose.
the hassle? Just park the car somewhere else.
Stephen, the serious answer is that what you could do is you could renegotiate the terms of access. And you could either buy or exchange some land so that you no longer have this common user access. You can buy a piece of land off him or swap a piece of land.
I think I would worry about the sensitivity of it.
Yeah, you've got to be very careful.
You are the outsider,
Yes, you are.
aren't you?
Absolutely.
Really careful with that.
Yes, you have
really
to.
careful. You know, you've got to live. You know, you want a relaxed atmosphere to live in. And if you can move the car to somewhere, you know, sensible, maybe on your own land rather than in front, then just do so. You know, it's not worth the hassle.
Well, I think also it's a cultural difference, isn't it? We're very protective about our property here, and our laws reflect that.
They do.
And that's not always the case across Europe.
Well, I mean, the laws reflect that as well, Stephen.
Well,
in
the
France.
law does, but in practice it doesn't
No,
work
I mean,
quite the
as I
same
say,
way, does it?
people in France with foreigners deal with a particular problem in a different way than if it was a local with a local. Whereas they would go down to the local vineyard and have a glass of wine, you know.
Well, I was going to say that this guy's probably a wine producer,
well,
isn't he? So there we
I
are.
mean, my view is that I would sit around the table with them, hopefully they get on well with them, have a glass of wine and say, look, this is quite clearly causing you and me a problem. Why don't we do a swap of a strip of land so that you don't come down the road and mess my car up with your combine harvester or whatever. Let's see what we can do. And I would do that. I wouldn't bring the law in, I wouldn't bring a lawyer in, I wouldn't bring anything authoritarian in, because the last thing to do is that. The next thing you know is your car's being crushed by a combine harvester.
Exactly.
Anything interesting?
I think it is just one of those irritating situations. And
Well, the French are irritating, aren't they?
It's just all about the relationships. I've definitely had an experience in the UK, and it's tough because it is a civil matter. So unless they're being, you know, physically abusive towards you or threatening, the police won't get involved because it's totally domestic. So it absolutely is. You've just got to come to a common ground, even when people can be extremely difficult. You just need to find a common ground, a solution that works for them and you. And just the best thing to do, because it's all about negotiation in this instance, it's all about negotiation. You have to find what's in it for the neighbour and also what's in it for you and come to a common ground together. The biggest and the most powerful tool in negotiation for this particular circumstance is listen to understand, not to reply. So when you're coming to an agreement with the neighbour, don't just listen to go, yeah, but just go, I understand where you're coming from. He might have sentimental feelings over this piece of mud. You know, he's had this property for a long time and this land. So just, he finds maybe it's a bit invading because you're now a part of this and he doesn't know you.
Like I said, just move the car. You know, I'm not being funny. Even if you know you're in the right. You know, sometimes in life, you just, to make life easy for yourself,
make it easy.
Just move the car.
Steve, what you could do is ask him for help. Asking someone for help is a totally different way of diffusing the situation.
Totally.
So you could ask him, say, look, you've got the heavy tools and the heavy machinery. Could you help me create another entrance?
Exactly.
So it means we'll transfer our rights.
I see a lot of these things on a daily basis, and I think I would just add stay away from the law, really.
Totally.
Solve it
not
yourself,
fall out with your neighbours.
No,
do not fall out with them at any cost.
Okay, thank you. So, Tricia, I keep seeing and hearing about ways to invest in property while having no finance. I hate the idea of borrowing from family and friends in case anything goes wrong. Are there ways to do this with other people's money? And if so, how do I get to meet these people?
I think the thing is, when asking for anybody else's money and equally doing it with your own money, I personally, whenever using somebody else's money, I want to make sure I've done all the due diligence and I treat it as if it is my own money. Because, you know, especially when it's an investor, they want to know that their money is safe and that you've made all of the adequate arrangements should your first exit, second exit, third exit not work. So the question of how do I make this work even if it goes wrong, I mean, you know, would you suggest that maybe you've not done enough due diligence thinking that it might end wrong? Now, I'm not saying it's a perfect scenario and that it's all going to be a win-win, but you do need to make sure that you've adequately done your due diligence in the respect that you're protecting yourself and the people that are investing in you. I personally think family and friends can be difficult sometimes because it's family and friends, and mixing money with family can be tricky. But when looking for outside investment, as before, it's all about making sure that the investor knows exactly what he's investing in, making sure that he's very clear on the different exit strategies that you have, but also making sure he's clear if they don't work out, what is the solution for that problem. For example, on like an investment strategy on a buy and hold, if money was supposed to all come out of the deal at refinance and then pay back the investor, if any money did end up being left in because of a down valuation, for example, we would then have an agreement in our loan agreement with our investor to state that they would get 100% of the cash flow from the property until all their money is paid back, and then we would either close our agreement or separate on that basis.
Sorry, Trish, but what I don't understand, and I know I'm considered a bit of a dinosaur, okay? But who on earth is going to lend someone money who has never done a property deal in their lives before? Who on earth is going to do that? It sounds complete madness to me. Why would you lend someone money, hard-earned money that you pay tax on, to someone who's never done a job, never done a deal before in their lives? Surely they don't do that.
And that's absolutely, it's a good question, but yes, they do, absolutely.
Well, they must be crackers in my view.
I started somewhere, and I think when you, again, it's about the due diligence. So if you're new in property and you've got to show that you've invested in yourself, your education, that you're doing things for the right reasons. So it's always the right things for the right reasons. If all the due diligence is there, you've proven the deal. And again, I would state, any investor that is looking to invest in the deal, do your own due diligence as well. If you've not done that, then pretty much you're expecting to get burned somewhere.
The one exception I would say is, and we do this on Property Elevator sometimes, you're investing in the person as much as the deal.
Absolutely.
And now what I would say, you know, there are some special people around who you just know are going to be successful, whatever they do. But for the majority of the people, come on, why would you, lend someone?
Well, I think
madness.
This is one of the difficulties over crowdfunding, isn't it? You know, you've got a lot of very inexperienced people lending money, and whilst the way in's pretty easy, the way out may not be.
Spot on.
But anyway, let's move on. John, your question.
Yes.
Now, this is something I know a little bit about. Japanese knotweed seems to be in and out of the news.
Yep, know all about that.
Some say it's okay, and others say it's a disaster.
Okay.
A home near to me that I'm looking to buy has it. I'm therefore a bit concerned. Is there any legal position about it and its effect on the property value?
There certainly is, and knotweed is a big problem. If you get it cleared by a professional firm, you should get a 10-year guarantee on it. You should do. And if you do that, then your property should be all right to be sold and so on. But don't just pull it up and chuck it over the fence and think that no one's going to notice, because unfortunately they will do.
I think for the benefit of our viewers, they should know
Yes.
that knotweed can go very deep into
very
concrete
deep
and come up.
yeah, absolutely. It can grow incredibly quickly in very little soil, and it doesn't need a lot of water to get it to grow, and it can go underneath the foundations and really cause some serious problems.
Now this is a problem that occurs mainly along canals or riversides.
It can do, yeah.
And on the Thames, for instance,
Yes.
where we are now. And of course the Environment Agency get very heavy-handed about this.
My advice is, if you're looking at something that you think's got knotweed in it, don't bother, go and find something
Well,
else.
take an indemnity insurance out. You can take an indemnity insurance
Yeah, you
out.
can for 10 years, and you can get the guarantee for 10 years. But if you're just looking something to live in yourself, or you probably live in yourself or something, my advice was don't touch it, move on. You know, you haven't got a problem. Why cause yourself a problem?
Isn't there, I'm not an expert on this, but isn't there something that, well, you, in fact, on the preliminary inquiries when you buy a house, you have to disclose that?
Of course you do, absolutely, yeah.
There is a problem,
Yeah.
Yeah. You have to disclose it, but I suppose the added complication is it's not just a question of eradicating it. I mean, you've got to first of all chop down what's visible above the surface.
No, with all due respect, you need an expert to do the whole thing.
To do that, yeah. But you know, the disposal of that is quite a technical issue.
It is a technical issue,
isn't it?
yes.
Which is where I was coming to on
Yeah.
that.
A bit like asbestos.
It
It's
is
similar
indeed,
to us.
yeah.
To be honest,
I suppose
to be
it's
honest
a
with
living
you,
asbestos. Very good.
Do you know what? That's brilliant. It is. It's a
Yes.
living asbestos.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very good.
I think knotweed is always interesting because, yeah, I think it's tough. I've certainly had experience with it, and I think certain lenders, the key is get an excellent broker, so power team again, get an excellent broker. They'll know which lenders are more open to knotweed, and certain lenders will have guidelines about how many yards is it away from the property? Because different lenders have different amounts that they want it away, but equally, has it had a treatment plan? Has it had service?
But Tricia, also, it's not always about you buying it. It's about
if
when
you're selling it.
it.
Oh, absolutely. If it's a flip.
And well,
it's
I
a
hate that
tricky
word
one.
flip, because you mean
Buying, doing, selling.
Everyone uses it, I know. But what I'm saying, it's not about you buying it. You've got to make sure that whenever it is, it might be 3-5 years time, that you can sell that on.
Yeah.
And if there's history of this, that, and the other, anything that puts a buyer off, you don't want to touch.
Okay.
Move on. Find another one. There's lots out there.
Well, talking and moving on, that's all we've got time for today. So my thanks to Stefano Lucatello.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you. Tricia Harvey, thank you very much. And John Howard, thank you once
it's always
again.
a pleasure.
Okay. Join us next time on Property Question Time.
If you have any questions you'd like to send to the experts at Property Question Time, you can submit them via our website, on social media, or email us on info@propertytelevision.co.uk.
My name is John Howard, and I've been investing and developing properties for over 40 years. In that time, I've been very successful, but of course I've always made the odd mistake as well. In my book, I explain how to be successful and what to do should something go wrong. I've survived 3 property recessions. I can help you do the same. My book is available online. Please go to johnhowardpropertyexpert.co.uk.
Buying your dream home abroad is no more difficult than buying a home in the UK. Cobalt Law LLP is the name to trust for providing international qualified property solicitors and a comprehensive range of legal services with decades of experience in overseas property law. We have both English and international qualified lawyers with expertise to handle both routine property purchases and complex business transactions. For more information, visit our website at cobaltlaw.co.uk. Let us help you to take the stress out of buying property overseas.